Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name is Clint Button. I'm a granite sculptor. And welcome to video number 90 of the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. All right, I'm going to do this. I want to get light because right now the light's pretty good. It's the end of the day. I've got both sides, both long sides finished. And this side in the dark, but still you can see it looks pretty good. Now right now, the next step, we're going to cut these corners. That's what we're going to do now. I'm not going to do it today because it's the end of the day. The light's right on the edge of going to be too much. But I wanted to show you because I thought I'd be able to show you pretty well here. See if I can look down that edge. That edge is kind of shaggy. And so is this one. I don't know if you can really see it. This top edge, okay? I didn't put a line on. I said, you know, at the beginning, I'd probably put a line and cut a straight line down through there. The most important part of that scotia is that it's balanced. Now, fixing this top edge is pretty easy because we're going to tip it. And so we'll tip this edge after we cut the corners. But I want to show you in this light. I'm going to tip this edge. I'll tip this edge a little bit too. And what I'll do is we'll tip it, and I can tip it and make basically a straight line in the polish. Okay, so this polish, it'll be really, really straight. That line will look great. Then I'll go through here and I'll shave off the high spots to even out, because we're going to have a beveled line here that's going to be, you know, an 1/8, maybe a 3/16. You don't want to go 1/4 inch because then it looks like you just ground it off and it looks bad. We want to have a narrow bevel along the entire top perimeter, and then to make it straight line so that this line is straight. And then what we'll have is we'll have wide and narrow portions on the bevel. We'll cut off the wide portions, it'll narrow up the bevel, and the bevel will be a little different value just in terms because of the orientation. You'll see it a little bit differently. So we'll have the bevel, and the bevel will be a consistent line. It'll be very straight on the polish side, and we'll cut it, just pare it away like we did on before to make it very straight on the opposite side, and it'll look great. We won't notice it. And the whole point is this is supposed to subdue and just go away. But first, come back in the morning, we're going to cut these corners. Now the corners, and we're going to approach the corners the same way we did, similar to how we approach the sides. We want everything to balance. So what I'm going to do is we're going to cut a narrow strip basically on each side using the pattern. We're going to make the pattern, you know, fit here really well and fit here really well. These corners are a tremendous focal point. People are going to look at them and see whether they're square, see whether the line is crooked or uneven or anything. It should be centered and it should be straight. So this is money, okay? This is a money shot right here. So we'll end up tipping these. So you got to be careful here because I got a little bit of material. We'll have to tip these lines, these edges, this edge, we'll tip that down to try to secure this corner, because this corner is really dangerous. We're going to bevel it really careful, and we'll carry this bevel. Once we get this cut and get this pattern matched, we're just going to extend slowly one way, extend slowly the other way, and we'll just cut it right off all the way down. Now see, this is probably already just about finished material here. By the time we cut this back a little bit, that's really close. We've got to go really slow and really careful. I'm going to cut the back corners first, just to make sure and to demonstrate, but also it's good for me to practice. It always is. We'll cut the back corner first, so if we have any issues, we can learn to address them where they're not in public. People aren't going to come around to the back of the stone to look at a corner as readily as they will see the front ones where they got to be perfect. So we'll, through the magic of video, we'll be back in just a couple of minutes, and the next day, we're going to start cutting these corners. It's getting close, folks. All right, magical video, we're back. I'm gonna play this by ear. I've got no light from outside today, which is great, except it blows up my video because I can't light what I'm doing, because if I turn my light so I can see, y'all can't see anything. Okay, so I'm gonna try to balance this out to where I can see what I'm doing and not make a mistake, but y'all can see what I'm doing to understand it. Now, the old saying about, cutting corners, about doing it, cutting the corner off to save a trip. Cutting corners doing stone's a different world. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is arguably the most critical thing I've cut on the entire stone. It probably will be. This will be the most difficult part of the whole stone. So I got to really be careful. First thing I'm going to do, got my pattern. I'm out here and I'm out, 5/8 of an inch, 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to tip this with a 16 point and get this corner cut off back in here. Now I got to be really careful when I'm working this, just like when we were cutting this, we didn't want to push up because we didn't want to pop this off. I don't want to put anything in a parting pressure like this, because that whole corner will just fly right off and we'll have a great big knockout right there. And then we got to do the ends all over again, and I'm not doing that. You've been warned. This is where you'll screw up. If you don't go careful and you don't go slow, or you don't know what you're doing, it'll cost you money. So this is when people say, well, don't fingers and noses just you can just knock them off. Okay, this is the kind of thing. This is where it can go wrong. So you got to really be careful. I'm going to put this together. I'm not going to show you. I've already showed you doing the scotias on the side. I'm just going to do a scotia here. I'm going to do a scotia here. And the whole reason that I'm doing these and not the whole panel is that this is the focal point and this is the focal point. I'm going to make these perfect, and then I'm going to balance it in the middle so there's a little bit of wiggle. If there's a wiggle on this, or this has got to be skewed a little bit to make it perfect, nobody's going to pay attention to that. They're going to look at the pretty corners, and they're going to look at whether this line on the top is parallel to the stone that's on top of it. They're not going to look for, unless this has a really big wonky in it, they're not going to see it. We're going to do this end, we'll cut a corner, we'll do this end, before we do the whole thing, we'll do one end, and then match the corners, and then we'll do the panel in the middle. While I'm doing this, and taking this material off here, instead of leaving a big lump, I'm going to work this all down at the same time, very carefully. I want to leave this a little bit high. I don't want to get down to where I'm out of line with what this panel's going to be, but I don't want to have something that's 5/8 of an inch tall with this, because that'll break off really easy. So I'm going to work this down very carefully. I've already tipped this edge all the way to the end, so it's approximately the same. I want to accomplish that same thing here, but as I approach this is going to be finished job, finished work. We've got to be really careful with it. Okay, so I'll be back. As you take this down, take it all down together, okay? So you don't create a big piece here that's easy to pop off. As I'm working this, I've got extra material here. I can carefully shave this and keep it flat, but I don't want to go back. I want to try to get this all matched up, but I want to eliminate material while I can, while it's safe. Remember, if you break off, you got a big portion and a small portion. The small portion will give, and the smaller the portion that gives, the more control you have. I'm going to cut this way. I'm not going to cut where it'll create and pull out. while you're doing this, remember, run, rift, head grain. This is the rift. Breaks really straight. This is the run. It's going to either tip like this, or tip like this when it breaks. This is the humped out end. That means if this pops off, it's going to pop off like that, and I'm going to have a big old chip out here. So you got to really pay attention and not get lulled into, well, it was breaking nice and straight over here. You're going to break like that here. So you got to juggle that and be really careful. You got to make sure you work your bevel, dip your bevel, and pair up to it. Don't put a lot of energy in with this, because even out here doing this, I've got a couple pop out that were, you know, almost a 1/4 inch, you know, 3/16 fat. So if I get up here on this edge with a 9-point, I'll have to match up that polish. And then we got to have a wide bevel, and that'll look cool. Almost there. Got to go another 1/4 inch. Yeah, according to that, about a 1/4 inch. And I am shaving this down some as I go, trying to make sure that this mass stays relatively small, so that'll be a stronger corner. Keep your tools super sharp, and if they chip or whatever, they got any irregularities, fix it. When you get onto fragile detail like this, you can tip with a bush chisel. That's too much. That's too vague to use on the corner. Okay, you can't see where everything is. And if you tip it, you'll put too much energy into the corner. This is where you'd have to use just a straight chisel. Just put a very carefully shave a bevel on there, just like I was showing you. To shave it, that's why I was showing you how you manipulate the tool. You do it here where you cut it clean. Now this still flares out just a little bit, both sides. That's what it's got to do. So I'm going to keep shaving this and get this right. Over here just a little bit. Peel that off. Go slow, sharp, sharp. Okay, let's look at this. Okay, I've got a great fit. Got a great fit with the pattern through here. And I'm doing everything that we did over here. I'm resolving, you know, low spots with this on a bias, scraping the tops off, flat, shaving the edge up, tipping it, cutting to the edge. Everything we've been doing is practice. Now you can see I've got, if it turns this off, if it looks better. Not really. You can see I've got this edge pretty good. Looking from over top, this comes out just a little bit and it comes out more here. Now what we got to do is we got to slowly shave this off. Shave, 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 shave. We're going to work both sides at the same time to get this up, to try to keep as much material to support this. We want to have some material there so we've got some hold. We'll work this off and we're going to try to get that line started. And because we cut an accurate scotia that matches on both sides, because the pattern tells us it matches, this is a 90-degree corner. That line should go pretty good all the way through there. And once we get down close to the bottom, we'll tip this as well. There's different ways you can do this. We could tip the bottom and work towards the middle, you know, from the top and the bottom. But I'm going to work this top off, get this nice, get this started, try to get some of this excess material off of here. And we'll shave it as we go along, and we'll just reduce down to it. And the idea is that we're not going to cut this line, this miter. We're going to leave it. That's going to be something we don't really touch. We're going to cut up to this edge. We don't cut the edge, cut an edge, as much as we produce a line, and then we work up to that line and leave the line where it is. And that's what keeps things from popping and breaking out. We want to reduce to this, and I'll try to get the best video that we can. Start cutting this edge. For the most part, The rest of this is just straight chisels. We're not going to do bush chisels to produce this edge. That's just not the way we're going to do it. 99% of it is going to be with just regular chisels. And I'll let you in on a little secret. The reason that quote unquote artists and fancy sculptors and people that think they're important don't do this work is that this isn't something you can fake. You can either cut this edge or you can't, because that's a straight line and that's a sharp edge. And even a kindergartner can look at it, a little kid can look at it and say, well, that's not right. It's easy to fake a curve, really hard to fake a straight line or a square edge or a corner. So this is why we've been doing all this work, because now doing this will be pretty straightforward, because we know what we're doing. I'm going to set up my other stool over here so I can move from this stool to that stool. You know, if I wasn't trying to video this, I don't know that I can set my bench diagonal here. But you need to be comfortable when you work. Let's try an overhead view. This is the corner. This is the polish. See if that helps you understand what I'm doing. Want to be really careful not to push into this line. Okay, we want to stay high, and we'll shave, and as we shave it, it'll relieve everything and it'll just show up. This is also where a lot of people would go and grab a little 1/2 inch or 5/8 or Bantam or whatever, because they're afraid they're going to break it. You'll put more energy into it standing there scrubbing on it forever to cut it. You will just cut it decisively with a bigger hammer. A 3/4 inch machine can carve pretty much anything I'll ever carve. And the little machines, once in a while I use them, but 3/4 1 inch is all I use for 99% of everything I do. I never used a smaller machine until I had my own studio. I always carved everything 3/4 and 1 inch and 1 1/4 once in a while. This is where you've got to trust your pattern. You got a pattern here that's right. You got a pattern here that's right. Because you scotia that's right because you did your pattern. You have to set up on a square so you know this is the 90 degree here. Trust it and do what you're supposed to do. This is going to look scary because this is way out, and you want to get too aggressive. Just go slow. Make the scotia match on both sides, and it'll leave a perfect line. As I get down to my final edge, I'm going to start tipping it a little bit. I don't want it to be too much of a knife edge. I want to have a little bit of flat on it, so it's got a little bit of strength. Just a little bit. And then afterwards, we'll shave it off and make that flat almost I'm gonna break this video off. I've got a bunch more. You know, this moves really fast. It's hard to capture this work and make it into digestible, easy to sit there and watch, because I'm used to working and getting this done, and we're trying to capture video along the way. So I'm going to break this off now, and it should make for 2 videos that are a little bit short instead of one that's like 40 minutes long. But I wanted to show you something else, and this is, I don't know, maybe I should have showed you this in the very beginning. This is a real fancy base, right? Okay, y'all agree it's a lot of work. You know, it costs a lot of money. It's an expensive piece of stone, whatever. Okay, that's our perspective. You know what the rest of the world thinks? As far as the bird's concerned, it's just a toilet. Bird's gonna come along, you'll put, you know, weeks or months or maybe even a year or two in a big old fancy piece of sculpture, and the only thing that matters to a bird is whether you can poop on it or not. And so you really need to keep this in perspective in the big picture. I don't want to get all heady and talk about, you know, the cosmos and everything else, but this is just a rock. And you know, there's a whole bunch of world out there, different perspectives, and all your fancy sculpture is a toilet for a bird. That's it. So now, the reason I use granite and like it is that whatever berries this bird ate and it pooped on this granite, we can wash it right off. It's no big deal. If that was marble, I would have been all over it because it'd already be stained blue. Red if it ate pokeberries or blackberries or strawberry, whatever. And marble can stain, and it can be a really permanent thing. So, but keep it in perspective. We're just making toilets for birds. That's all we're doing. So every single piece of stone that's ever been carved, that's all it is. My name's Clint Button. I'm a granite sculptor here at Carolina Sculpture Studio with a Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Thanks for coming in.